Two people walk into the same room. Same age, same background, same level of intelligence, same job title. One of them opens their mouth and people lean in. They listen. They take notes. When that person finishes speaking, there is a pause, a moment of genuine consideration before anyone responds. The other person speaks and people are politely waiting for them to finish. Half the room is already thinking about something else. Their words land, but they do not stick. They do not carry weight. Nothing was said differently, but everything felt different. If you felt your words weren't landing, like people were listening but not truly hearing you, or someone else's words carried more weight, like the same thing said by someone else would be received differently, this video is for you. The difference between those two people is not talent, status, or even confidence as most people understand it. It is a set of silent signals. Signals your body, behavior, and presence broadcast every second. Signals other people's brains read automatically, unconsciously, and permanently. Before you've said a single sentence, before you have introduced yourself, before anyone in that room knows anything about you. And today we are going to break down exactly what those signals are and exactly how to change them. The first thing you need to understand is what happens in the first 7 seconds. Psychologists have studied first impressions extensively, and the finding is consistent across cultures, contexts, and demographics. Within 7 seconds of meeting someone, the human brain has already formed a preliminary judgment on whether this person is competent, trustworthy, and worth taking seriously. 7 seconds. Before you have said anything meaningful. Before your intelligence, your experience, or your actual capabilities have had any chance to show themselves. And here is the part that most people miss entirely. That first impression does not just influence how people see you in that moment. It creates a filter through which everything you do afterward gets interpreted. If the first impression says, "This is someone worth listening to," then your ideas get the benefit of the doubt. Your mistakes get explained away. Your confidence gets amplified by the room. If the first impression says, "I am not sure about this person," then your best ideas get questioned. Your credentials get scrutinized. Your nervousness gets magnified. The brain is not looking for reasons to change its first impression. It is looking for reasons to confirm it. This is why you can work with someone for months and still be dealing with the residue of how you first walked into the room. The first signal is the most powerful signal. And most people send it without knowing they are sending anything at all. So what are those signals actually made of? The research points to 3 things that the brain reads faster than conscious thought: posture, movement speed, and eye behavior. Posture is the most studied and the most misunderstood. Most people have heard stand up straight, shoulders back, take up space, and that is true as far as it goes. But the deeper principle is not about any specific position, it is about groundedness. A person who is taken seriously immediately moves and holds themselves like someone who belongs exactly where they are. Not aggressively, not performatively, just settled, rooted, as if the space they occupy is theirs not because they claimed it, but because they never thought to question it. Contrast that with the person who walks into a room and immediately adjusts themselves to fit the space, shoulders slightly pulled in, movements slightly apologetic, posture subtly arranged to take up less room than they actually need. That adjustment is invisible to the conscious mind of the observer. But the unconscious brain reads it immediately and files it under. This person is not sure they belong here. Movement speed is equally powerful and almost never talked about. Watch someone who commands a room. Their movements are deliberate. When they reach for something, they reach. When they turn to look at someone, they turn. There is no excess motion, no fidgeting, no small unnecessary adjustments that broadcast a restless, anxious internal state. Now watch someone who struggles to be taken seriously. Their body is in constant low-level motion, small gestures, repeated adjustments, subtle signals that the nervous system is running hot, that there is a gap between where they are and where they feel they should be. You do not need to become robotic. You need to become intentional. Every movement either adds to your presence or takes from it. There is no neutral. Now, the trap that destroys more credibility than almost anything else, over-explaining this, one is so common and so damaging that it deserves its own conversation. When you feel that someone might not believe you, or might not respect you, or question your competence, the instinct is to add more. More context, more justification. More evidence, more reasons why your position is valid. And every single piece of additional explanation sends the same signal. I am not sure you believe me. Think about the most credible people you know. The ones whose words carry weight in every room they enter. Notice how they speak, they make a statement, they stop. They do not immediately follow it with, and the reason I say that is, or, I know this might sound surprising, but, or the endless qualifiers that most people wrap around their ideas, like patting around something fragile. They state, they stop. They let the statement occupy the silence. That silence is not emptiness. It is confidence. It is the unspoken communication that says, I said what I meant, I do not need to convince you. You can decide what to do with it. Every time you over-explain unprompted, you are telling the room that you do not trust your own words to stand. And if you do not trust them, why should anyone else? This does not mean be arrogant. It does not mean refuse to elaborate when asked. It means learn the difference between explaining because someone needs more information and explaining because you are anxious about being believed. One is useful. The other is erosion. Now, the signal that most people completely overlook. How fast you react. When something unexpected happens in a conversation, a challenging question, a disagreement, a moment of pressure, the speed of your reaction tells the room everything about where you actually are internally. The person who reacts immediately, who jumps to defend, to explain, to fill the silence, broadcasts one thing above all else. That what just happened was big enough to move them, that the pressure landed. The person who pauses, who receives the challenge, takes a breath, and then responds from a place of deliberate choice, broadcasts something completely different, that nothing in this interaction is threatening enough to make them lose their footing. This is the same principle we talked about in the Silent People video, but here it is applied specifically to credibility. Your reaction speed under pressure is one of the most honest signals your body sends. You cannot fully fake it. You can only develop it by genuinely building the internal stability that makes the pause natural rather than performed. The practice is simple. Every time you feel the impulse to react immediately, wait one beat longer than feels comfortable. Not to be mysterious, not to perform calm, but to create a genuine gap between what you received and what you send back. In that gap, you choose, and choice is always more powerful than reflex. Now, the single habit that does more damage to how people perceive you than almost anything else. Seeking validation in real time. This is the pattern of checking, constantly, subtly, whether the room approves of what you just said. The slight upward inflection at the end of a statement that turns it into a question. The eyes that scan the room immediately after making a point, looking for nods, for smiles, for any signal that what you said was received well. The laugh that arrives a half-second early, preemptive, slightly too eager, trying to make sure the joke lands before it actually has. Every one of these micro-behaviors sends the same message. I need your approval to feel confident in what I just said. And the devastating irony is that the more you seek validation, the less people feel inclined to give it, because validation is most freely given to people who do not seem to need it. The person who makes a point and then immediately looks around the room to see how it landed gets watched for their reaction rather than considered for their idea. The person who makes a point and then simply waits, comfortable in the silence, not scanning for approval, fully settled in what they said, gets taken seriously almost automatically. Stop looking for the nod, make your point, let it breathe. Trust it. So how do you actually reset the perception an entire room has of you, especially if that perception has already been formed? The answer is consistency over time, but it starts with a single interaction done differently. You cannot undo a first impression by explaining that it was wrong. You can only replace it with a new one that contradicts it so consistently that the brain eventually updates its file. This means the next time you are in a room where you feel underestimated, you do not try harder. You do less. You speak less, you react less, you fill less silence. You become the still point, the unhurried presence. The one who does not need the room to validate them because they are not asking the room for anything. And here is what will happen. Slowly, then suddenly, people will start to notice the gap between who they assumed you were and who you are showing them you are. And when people notice that gap, they do not conclude that they were right all along and you just got better. They conclude that they missed something, that there was always something there they failed to see. That recalibration, quiet, gradual, and built entirely from consistent behavior, is the most powerful reputation shift available to any human being. No announcement required, no argument made, no credential presented. Just presence, repeated, until the room adjusts itself around you. Here is the last thing. The thing nobody usually says out loud. Being taken seriously is not something other people give you. It is something you stop preventing. Every time you over-explain, you are preventing it. Every time you seek validation with your eyes, you are preventing it. Every time you react before you have finished thinking, you are preventing it. Every time you make yourself smaller to fit the room, you are preventing it. The work is not addition, it is subtraction. Strip away the anxious behaviors, the apologetic posture, the validation seeking, the preemptive self-justification. What remains underneath all of that is a person with something real to say, a presence that does not need permission to occupy space. A stillness that communicates more than any introduction ever could. You were always worth taking seriously. You just kept getting in your own way. Subscribe to Power Layers. Because this is the work, stripping away everything that is blocking the version of you that was always there.